Hello there. Welcome to another episode of Just Two Dads with my co-host, Mr. Sean Francis. I'm Brian Altunian, and we are at episode number 207. And as we enter summertime this year, travel plans are exploding. And so, what do our families with special needs family members do when it comes to travel? Today's guest is Dian Rambo. She's going to be talking about um, all of the things that you can do and things to consider. And this is perfect timing for our conversation. Just Diane's second visit with us, but we thought the beginning of travel season, let's have this conversation again. So stay tuned for another episode of Just Two Dads. Hey, I'm Brian Altunian, and along with Sean Francis. And 4 years in, we are episode 207 of our Just Two Dads podcast, where we like to shine the light on those professionals that are serving the special needs communities, those folks that are helping caregivers of all kinds. And so we're really excited to be having this conversation today with Diane, who's coming back for the second time to talk about advances, changes, and things that are happening in the travel industry. She's a certified autism travel professional, among other things, mom of two, and she's going to share her story with us. Really excited to get into it. So without further ado, Sean Francis, let's jump into this and get some magic from Diane.
I am all for that. Diane, welcome back to Just Two Dads.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Great. So what we're gonna do is, when Diane was here before, we talked a lot about her story, her journey, and what led her to become an autism certified travel specialist, and her journey as a caregiver and mother to a child with autism. And what we're going to do more of today is talk about practical steps. And I am selfishly looking forward to this in terms of okay, what do you do to get ready for travel? My son Elijah is 19. He was diagnosed at the age of 3, and we have never had him on an airplane. And so I've got questions in terms of what do we do with that? How do you begin that? But at the same time, we're going to talk just a little bit, if you will, about what you've been up to since you last came to visit us, because we're all about overcoming obstacles and following dreams as well. And so why don't you share just a little bit of that with us before we jump into the how-tos and what to do for travel?
Yes, our journey is actually a little unique. We've been through a lot of highs and a lot of lows. One of the lows was actually after COVID, I decided not to go back to work because I saw the benefits of my son helping him be able to conduct online learning during that time. And so it was very difficult to find a schedule that works with his schedule. So we ended up becoming homeless, and we actually did live in a shelter. And during that time, we really reached out to different resources that were available, which were very slim. So we found ways to navigate through the shelter system and get into a program which ended up housing us and then getting us back on our feet, finding a job and things like that. And so it enabled me to be able to teach him kind of the rough part of life, if you will, at a very early age. He was 8 at the time. Now he's about to be 10 this year. And so it guided us, and it enabled me to really prepare him for what could be possible and what could happen, especially if things don't go your way, and how to get out of that. So I was fortunate enough to get into a program where I am now teaching 5th grade. I'm in a master's program to where I can continue education through K through 12, but I want to further that and get a doctorate. I'm not exactly sure if I want to go into the autism aspect of it, or if I want to help in other realms, because my ultimate goal is to open up a school. So that is our journey here and now. And with him, he's actually been fortunate enough because of those hardships we've encountered. He was able to maintain an AB honor roll. And so no one really outside looking in really understood our situation, but he was able to still maintain those grades. And so every summer he looks forward to going on the road. And so he's literally been traveling every summer for the past couple of years with dad or with and he's been seeing the whole United States so far.
Wow. Wow.
Wow. That's something else.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. There's several things I've taken from that, which is had no idea you had gone through that. And though we didn't talk often, we've been in touch since you were on the show last, but I had no idea. So that tells you, one, you never know what someone is going through. Check in on people. And at the same time, the other thing is you just there's resources out there. You never know what somebody is going through. Wherever you are is not where you have to be. So thank you for that tremendously. So let's start with the travel, and I'm going to go from a selfish standpoint, and hopefully there's people out there that can relate to that. So our son Elijah is 19. He's never been on a plane. Those of you that know me know that I'm originally from the U.S. Virgin Islands, live here in Los Angeles. I was actually planning a trip to go down there this summer to visit my dad, and we were trying to coordinate how that was going to be done. I don't have a real ID, which is required, and that's a whole another story. I had to get another copy of my birth certificate, all that kind of stuff. But my question is then, let's say I had everything I needed. I'm about to go travel to the U.S. Virgin Islands with Elijah. We're leaving, I don't know, let's say 2 weeks, whatever have you. Where does one start from scratch? And I know that people listening will have a variety of concerns depending on the sensitivities of their loved one. There's things that I would expect from a sensory standpoint. Some of them I don't know what I'm going to get. With that information, where would you start, Diane, in terms of planning a trip like that?
First, I would definitely start earlier than 2 weeks, but if you have to do it within the 2 weeks, then you would have to kind of do some fast paced planning and
Mm-hmm.
practice, if you will. Practice is always going to be key, especially when your loved one has certain sensitivities. For instance, my son has been flying since he's been one. And
Mm-hmm.
that was even before his diagnosis. And I didn't even know there were programs out there that would actually help families with those that are neurodiverse or identify with autism that will allow them to come and practice at the airport, going through
Wow.
security. Yes, and actually practice in going onto the plane. If they allow and have time, again, that's why you have to plan ahead of time. They might even
Mm-hmm.
take you on a practice flight, like fly, go up, take off and then come back and land down so that you can kind
Right.
of get a feel for what to expect on a plane. Say if you are pressed for time, I would really take the time to jot down notes on, your child's sensitivities, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
sound, whether it's um, certain things that
Light
may
and
trigger
texture.
them. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
texture, food, even some of the seats, if you will, they might not like being confined like that. So maybe you need more room. So see if you can buy, the more than coach, if you will, types of
Mm-hmm.
seats. That will allow you to be able to somewhat circumvent some of their mannerisms. But I also would always alert the flight attendants. They are really, really good, especially if you alert them ahead of time that your
Mm-hmm.
child has certain sensitivities. And then they will be on alert to know that, hey, we might need to work on some techniques. You don't know if they are provided
Right.
training because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
companies now are becoming certified in autism.
Certified.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Right.
So they're
Okay.
trained.
So earlier is better so that you
Yeah.
can do as much homework as possible, practice, and then if you can, if it's within your budget, something like business class, which is in between
Well, or
coach first class or
yeah, and it would have to be that because sitting in an exit aisle may not be allowed. Or is that allowed?
That might be allowed as long as you're not in the emergency aisle with your child.
hmm
But you definitely, I wouldn't recommend sitting by the wings anyway for first
hmm
time flights, just because it is very loud, and I wouldn't
hmm
recommend sitting by bathrooms because again, that does tend to be very loud. So I would
in
try to shoot
traffic.
for either before the wings, or if you must sit in coach, definitely do not sit by the bathroom or sit by the wings. Definitely sit somewhere away from there. And depending on if they like looking out the window or not, because a lot of times my son actually, he's a daredevil. He loves heights. So he likes looking out the window. So I make sure I get him the window seat. But a lot of times, you know, they might not want the window seat, and that's fine too. They can sit in the aisle just as long as you kind of keep close eye. I would prefer putting them in the middle.
Okay. I know that American Airlines had a program, and we talked about it the last time you were here. Don't remember the name of it. And so I'm not sure if they simply taxi or if they actually get up in the air. How does one find, what is the certification? There's a term for the certification, and there's a way to find airlines that are autism friendly or special needs friendly. How does one go about doing that?
You can either look for Wings for Autism. That's one way you can search for them. And I know American Airlines specialize in it. Southwest has always been very good with us. You can either talk to the counter and just tell them, hey, I have a child with special needs and this is their special need. And, you know, what accommodations can you provide for me? As soon as you say those magic words, they will already route you to the correct department on who you need to get in contact with and set you up for those types of services if that's something that airline provides for you.
But I would say if somebody's planning on traveling and that's the situation, rather than having to go airline to airline, they should reach out to you.
Yeah.
Right? Because you've done most of this research, correct?
Yes, I have researched a lot of these, and actually I have a resource that comes to me directly that provides exactly the type of services that each airline will provide and what they can do. And then I can get you in contact with the direct number if you want to set up, say, a flight test, if you will.
Love that. So just for those who are not on video, the destination of the website for Diane is Destined Adventures. Destined, that's destined with an ED at the end, destinedadventures.com. Is that resource guide on your site, Diane?
Actually, I have to post that up there, but I will, because it's a new book that just came out that I pulled up last night. And I was like, oh, wow, this book is a lot bigger than the one I had originally. So I do need to put that up there really quickly.
Great. So, but Destined Adventures for those who want to reach out to Diane directly. And Diane, let me ask you, so as you just were saying, we've made some progress in the travel industry of the various airlines and other kinds of, does it include resorts and hotels and other places?
That was the next question I was going to ask. Yeah.
Yes, it has expanded phenomenally. We have destinations now. So say, for instance, my son loves attractions that include Six Flags. Six Flags in Mexico is now certified in autism. Dubai is a whole country that is now certified in autism. So anywhere that you go, whether it's a hotel, a restaurant, a convention center, a zoo, any attraction like that, museums, they are now trained specifically and have gotten their certification to be able to handle a child with autism. Arizona has now expanded. Mesa used to be the main attraction or main city that was certified, but now they've expanded their routes. And other cities are now coming aboard to becoming more certified because they recognize the need and they recognize the service that they need to provide in order to serve those families, because they realize that a lot of those families are apprehensive when it comes to travel. So they said, you know what, let's accommodate them in the best way possible so that they can incorporate their child into the social world, because you know, that's one thing we teach in school is how to be social and how can we be able to afford those types of experiences for children with autism.
I just read recently that the autism travel market is $268 billion.
Yes.
That would be a pretty good reason why anybody in the travel industry should look at this designation as being autism certified too. And by the way, just I mean that's the autism travel market. Special needs just in general is great as well.
Got to be bigger. Yeah. And here's the thing, which is factual and unfortunate, which is that that my dog won't shut up right now. But the fact that it's so necessary for you to have said that. It's unfortunate, but money is the only language that some people respond to. And when you talk about, and if it, whatever it takes for someone to respond to a human need, it's got to be done, whatever that language is going to be.
Yeah, but from a business perspective, sometimes to implement
Yeah.
new things and certification and other things, it costs money. So there's got to be an ROI for these. But the fact that the market has gotten to be so large that it has to be measured, like somebody is out there measuring the size of the travel market for our special needs families. That's pretty significant. And when they see the size, that gives another reason why these companies should accommodate.
And it goes back to what,
Yeah.
yeah, it goes back to what we always say, which is, and it seems like as many times as I say this, the list keeps growing. You know, we're implementing some improvements for our website, and I was working with some artificial intelligence actually, you know, last night, as a matter of fact, and I talking about the thing that we always say, which is that anything that affects the general population affects the special needs or caregiving population tenfold, and what classifies as anything, the list just continues to grow. And so the same is true when it comes to travel. That is no exception. Diane, let me ask you, if so, not only has our son not been on a flight, we haven't been to an amusement park. So, and here in the Los Angeles area, we've got a lot to choose from, and I'm sure they're more autism friendly than I realize. I know that, you know, we've gone from knowing that he would like Disney, thinking that we should go to Knott's Berry Farm because it's a smaller one at first, or, you know, what would you suggest in terms of which one might go to? And then in terms of preparation, because the one thought we've had is like, you know, you pay for the ticket and you go into it knowing that you're rolling dice. It's either going to work out just fine, or if you have to leave, you have to leave. Outside of that, what might you suggest?
I suggest, well, first of all, Knott's Berry is a certified center, so you can definitely try them. But I would definitely try with a smaller attraction first, and then build from there. So, for instance, when we first went to, I want to say it was SeaWorld, if I'm not mistaken. And we would take mini breaks in the attraction park. So we would go and visit one attraction, and then we would go off to the side alone, away from everybody, and take a mini break. They do have certain, those that are certified, they do have rooms, if you will, quiet rooms, so that you can go and decompress at. So if it's too far of a walk, so that's what I realized, I'm not walking all the way back to the certain room. That's when we just found quiet areas away from everyone. And that's where we were able to decompress, take breathers, you know, get a drink or things like that, you know, calm down. And they even provide noise cancellation headphones if you need, because sometimes it could be overstimulating. And you want to take those moments to use them at that time, or use it on the attraction if it allows. So that's kind of what we've done in the past, is we really just went at our own pace. And then we also alerted, again, if there was any troubles or anything like that, we just alert either the families that may be around us or the park officials to let them know that, hey, you know, our son may react in this way, you know, just give them a moment, because that's all they really need, is just a moment. Give them a moment to be able to process everything and not be so overstimulated, because sometimes someone coming to help can overstimulate them even further.
I've seen it. Yeah.
You just have to let them know, hey, you know, my child is this, you know, this is triggering them. We just let them have their moment. So that's what I would say is the best. But I would always start small and then build your way from there. My son was more of a daredevil. So the first thing he said is he want to ride the big rides. Well, he wasn't tall enough. So we would start off with the smaller rides and see how he would handle it, ask him, you know, how he felt and everything. And we would look at his body language. The body language tells you everything. And then we ventured out to bigger things. And then we went to bigger parks, longer walks. And that's how he was able to cope with being able to go to different attractions, different museums, and things like that. And like I said, he's enjoying, he didn't even want to come back home.
Yeah, that's great. We had so there's 2 points I want to make. One, which is based on something you said that I think is very worthwhile for anyone that's listening that works at a park or an attraction, which is letting them know that a minute is needed. We had an experience where during COVID, you know, my son wanted the vaccine because he associated it with going back to school. And there was a drive situation at one of the local colleges where they were giving the vaccine. That did not work. And he was going through anxiety where he wanted it, but he didn't want to do it. And the way that they thought they would help would be to kind of, you know, caringly get close to him and then hold him, and that didn't help. So if anybody's in a situation like that, it helps to ask families, because we each know what it is our children might need. I answered my own question because I was going to ask you how much of a time is needed with the break. But if you're a parent or caregiver, you generally know that. So
Yes.
and I forgot what the other point was I was going to make. So
let me jump in. When a family, again, such as Sean, is asking you for some travel advice, is there a destination or a travel experience that you have seen consistently that's been really successful? Is there something that you recommend, like where you've seen families have had a lot of success? Anything in particular?
What's really successful with children that's on the spectrum, or children with autism, or identify as neurodiverse, is animals, believe it or not, horses. So there are ranches out there that provide a visit with them. And you would think, oh my God, a horse, they're so big. You know, they have little ponies, or I forgot what you call the other ones that they're not called ponies, but they're called something else, but they're smaller than a horse. But they do have where they take you, you meet the horse or the pony, and you get a chance to ride for them. And it seems to calm them a little bit more. So those places, or even a zoo, for instance, or a petting zoo that allows you to kind of experience animals if they are up to it. Again, you know your child better than anyone. I would definitely recommend it. It's something calming about it. Like my son now is asking for a dog, and I'm like, you're allergic to dogs. But it's something that calms them, and it keeps them in, I hate to say it, but phrase it that way, but it is a safe space for them. And literally, that's kind of what he does. Like, he even takes around little figures, if you will. I call them dolls. But that calms him, and he even talks to one. And a lot of people might think that's a little strange, but it keeps him comfortable, and he takes it everywhere. He takes it on the road with him. He feeds it. But if that's what it's going to take for them to find a way to de-escalate or de-stress from all the stimulation, do not limit them. Allow them that moment. It won't last forever, because again, he's been through phases, and this is just a phase he's going through. Hopefully he'll grow out of it and go into something else. But it's necessary for them to feel safe and secured. And even though you're the parent, it's just something about that additional thing that makes them feel that safeness and feel that tranquility, that they'll want to go and do more things, and they'll even willingly ask to go into these different places, or might even explore. Like, he was so rigid, he didn't want to go different places, but then when he saw what was offered and what he could do, you know, a little by little, again, you sprinkle here and there. We call them experiments, if you will. That's what we label it every time, where there is experimental drink, experimental food, experimental place. We call it experiments. And then we ask at the end, how did you like it? What you not like? What did you like better than the other? You know, things like that. And then also, to kind of piggyback off of the attractions, there is a card you can get. Certain attractions allow you to go to the front desk and ask for accommodations, but there is an accessibility card you can apply for. It is totally free.
That's right.
And you can take it to the parks and take it to the guest services and say, hey, I have this accommodation from this card. What can you provide? Or even call ahead of time, so that you're not just making a trip and they can't accommodate you that day, because certain days are more busier than others. So it's called you apply for it on the International Board of Credentialing and Continuing Education Standards. In short, we all love acronyms, IBCCES. You can apply for it on their website. It is totally free. The application process is not rigorous. They don't ask you for a whole lot of things to prove that your child is this, that, and the other. And then once you get that back, you take that card with you everywhere to those types of attractions.
IBCCES, and that's the Certified Autism's destinations, right? They're the ones that offer those certifications for those travel destinations. Yeah.
Exactly. They offer it for professionals. They offer it for, so those that work in those attractions, if you want to get a certification, this is where you would go to apply for that. All the parks, all the resources. So the book that I was talking about that provides all of the newly certified locations and attractions are also documented here. So this is definitely a website you want to have on standby if you are ever looking for resources. Because they provide a wealth of knowledge. And if you're interested in having your city or having your establishment certified, this is where you would go and apply for that. Fantastic.
Sean, for those who are listening, not on screen, Sean has the IBCCES website up and is scrolling. Sean, on the resources, click on the resources tab. Is that okay, Diane? If we looked at the resources tab, is that the destination?
And you can see autism travel is right there.
So click on autism travel. Okay.
And here you can either search by keyword or you can literally just keep scrolling. And it literally will give you hotels, museums, convention centers, destinations. If you want to go overseas, like I said, Dubai is on board. They have a hotel in Jamaica somewhere that is certified. Mexico's coming on board, even though I know it's a tough time going to South America, but fortunately they are still on board on helping you support your child because they also have children that may be on the spectrum as well. And then other destinations in the US are now becoming certified. So this is where you would find all of that information. You can sift through it by category. You can put in, hey, does this, like, you can put in Knott's Berry, for example, and see if they're fully certified, what they have to offer and things like that. And they also provide kind of guidelines and steps that you can use to go and travel. But you won't know what best works for you until you actually go out there and do it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Wow. I love that you keep mentioning Dubai. Dubai doesn't look at special needs the way the rest of the world does. They don't look at it like it's like it's something negative or to be set aside. They actually honor it and consider it a special. It's a special characteristic to have special needs issues. Correct?
Yes, and they hold their standards high in providing those accommodations. That's one thing they pride themselves on. So it also exposes them to culture. So if you're interested in exposing them to different ethnicities, traditions, and things like that, which I expose my son to a lot when we go to certain places, I say, we need to learn that there are different people out there. You're not the only one that's different, if you will. That would give them the type of exposure, especially socially, because that's something we lack in the school system, is how to really get together socially with others and accept others for who they are, versus just judging them. So I really like that Dubai has come aboard and became a certified country, just because or city, just because that they recognize the need for it, and they also recognize that we need to expose multicultural diversity.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, that's huge.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I know, and I'm sure Sean will attest this, for parents planning a trip. I'm sure there's a lot of anxiety around the planning. And part of what you shared, practice and some of the advanced stuff that you can do. Anything else that you can recommend for parents who have anxiety around just the idea of taking their family member traveling?
Yes, parents, take a breather. Parents need to understand they need to decompress as well, just because it is a new anxiety being exposed. It's a new type of stress, because especially when my son was younger, he was a wanderer. However, I allowed him to explore within certain confinements. And so, as long as you set those boundaries early and have an honest heart to heart talk with your child, they do understand a lot more than you may think.
Mm-hmm.
And they do need redirection a lot of times. They're still kids. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, they still need a lot of redirection on what the rules are, what the procedures are, how you're going to go about things. And that's natural. So,
Yeah.
but just give yourself some grace because it is going to be high anxiety the first time around.
Yeah.
Just because
Mm-hmm.
you've never done it before, it is going to be high stress. It's going to be high
Yeah.
anxiety. You just have to be extra cautious, but also, I would utilize the school system a lot. Um, in Nevada, we have what we call SEEPs. So whoever your special education instructional facilitator is, they are also a very good resource because they are already trained with special needs. So they can provide you resources inside of what they've seen in the school, what they've been exposed to kind of help you
Mm-hmm.
navigate. Um, exactly what your child might be okay with in this type of environment and what they might be working on already if it's already created in their IEP or 504. Utilize that to your advantage. Say, you know what? We said we was going to focus on this. Let's just focus on this one thing, this one trip. Make that your goal. So set a goal. There's a purpose for why you're traveling other than
Mm-hmm.
exposing them, but it's also to work on their goals. And you're kind of working all around to make them a more well-rounded individual. So it's less hard on you. It's less heartening on you. And then you are able to say, hey, we worked on this summer. I noticed this, and take it back to your seat and say, hey, can you do something within the school program to where we focus on this, or we might need to revise the IEP or 504 in order for them to get the services and accommodations they need so that they can work on that next goal.
I love that. Well, I love what you said, and I love hearing your son's happiness in the background too.
Oh yes, he has fun all the time. He's a
Yeah.
different, totally different kid than before. Being nonverbal, not
Yeah.
eating certain solid foods, and now he's
Right.
trying everything. He's asking
Right.
to go certain places. He's even looking the destinations up.
Well, I was gonna say, I love that, and then I want to thank you for reiterating and reminding me, which I already knew, but maybe I forget or just needed to have it reminded of myself, which is for any parent out there, it is not easy, but it's simple, which is, you know, we don't know if we don't try, whether it's a food, a destination, or anything. We have to go ahead and just, give it a shot. And then the other thing is, as bad as in most cases, anyway, speak for everybody, but in most cases, as bad as any social situation can get, it's probably going to be worse in our minds in terms of what might happen compared to what actually does happen. Um,
Yes.
because it's so much easier to think the worst when you're dealing with the unknown. So those things are worth keeping in mind. I don't know if this is out of left field or not, but I think it's also worthwhile to just note um, accomplishments, growth, and just any changes that your child makes. My son and I were meeting my brother the other day at we were going to a Nike outlet store, and we're driving to the store. We pull into the shopping center, and there's a vacant one of the tenants that the lot that stores is empty. I was like, gosh, I wonder what store was there. And Elijah says, like Toys R Us. And I was like, I wonder if it's Toys R Us. Then he corrects himself and takes a closer look, and he goes, Bed Bath and Beyond, rip. And I'm like, rip. Where did you get he means rest in peace. And I'm just thinking, you just don't know the things that they pick up. And it goes back to what I was saying, in that if we stick with what we know and what we've experienced, we'll never go anywhere and never try anything.
No.
Uh, it's just interesting to think, and Sean and I have this conversation all the time. A lot of times, it's our limitations are what restrict a lot of this testing, right? So for parents are like, I can't even imagine my child and what that's going to do to me, how that's going to mess up my vacation or whatever. And so it's our limitations that restrict the travel, right?
It is. And as a mom, I know that I put certain limitations on my son. That's why I'm so thankful that dad is involved with him heavily, because that is what he needs. He needs the man's perspective of how things go. And so I realized that I was holding him back with a lot of independence. Like, for instance, crossing the street on his own, walking to the store on his own, something that a typical 9, 10-year-old might be able to do in your community. However, I'm fearful because of all the accidents, but I do realize at the same time I need to let it go. So I let dad handle that portion because I know me. I'm like, no, 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 that's my baby. But we do put those limitations on our children, and we do need to not only reflect on how we do it, but what are we going to do in order to create that self-efficacy for them to be able to go and be independent? Because ultimately, you would like them to be as independent as possible earlier while they're still young with you, but also still allow them to be their kid self. But you can see what areas may need growth in or support, and then provide services for that type of support. And not for the entire thing, saying they can't do this, can't do that, because they are actually capable of doing a lot more than we think. It's just our own fears are projected onto them, and we allow them or don't allow them to be able to expand further than our own fears.
Yeah. Do you find yourself partially? I mean, listen, you have your BA in psychology. Not that it makes you, a psychologist or anything, but do you find yourself counseling families as they're planning their travel because these kinds of things like anxiety come up? Is that
I do find myself doing that a lot just because of the psych background and now working with students. I do see a lot of connections and disconnects, if you will, on their the anxiety part of it, the stress of it, and just the fear alone. It's really more fear than anything. And so I always tell our story a lot to not only my students, but to families, so that they can see that it is a sunnier side on the other end.
he's laughing in
It-
the background?
yes, he is. Oh, he's watching something.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
He's a happy kid, and I don't think that would be possible with the exposure that we've provided for him, the growth and independencies we've provided for him, and then we still see for ourselves as parents what we need to do on our end in order to make sure that he is capable, or if he's not, what can we put into place if something was to happen to us. So I think always keeping that in the forefront is always important. So that's why when I do talk with the parents, I kind of find myself in that space to
Yeah.
somewhat counsel, if you will,
Yeah.
them so that they can feel more comfortable. And I think just sharing the story on its own is powerful and really motivational for them. And they can see that, hey, we can aspire to do that in the future.
Amazing. Uh, things, and again, in some cases where if air travel is potentially problematic, and some families consider that, do you recommend other forms like car trips, trains, other kinds of things that, you know, the second part of that is are cruise ships, some kind of travel thing that certain families would consider. So it's sort of, I did what I could accuse Sean of doing all the time. I just asked you two questions at once. So
A compound question.
there it
No
is.
problems. I'm ready for it.
Good.
I do actually recommend exposure to those different types of transportation as well, because you never know. Certain ones may not be available to them. So it's funny that you mentioned that, because my son is into trains for some reason now. He's
Love it.
looking up trains. He's like, Mom, can we go to Thailand? Because they have this sudden train. I'm like, wait a minute, where? And so, luckily for us in Las Vegas, we do have a train museum where they take tours. And so, and it's a small ride. Again, I always say chunk it, if you will. That's
Yeah.
a term we use in school all the time. But you definitely want to chunk your trips here. So even if it's a car ride, maybe try 45-minute trip or an hour trip, something that's really fairly close. but has something with a purpose, like a restaurant or a hotel or an attraction, just to kind of get them used to, okay, now we're going to get out the car, we're going to go and visit this establishment, do XYZ, get back in the car and return home kind of thing. Or even just go there, get out, walk around, and then get back in the car and go. And so I would say definitely car rides, you want to plan for that intentionally, because sometimes sitting down that long may not be a great thing. I know when we started out our car rides, we would do, when he was very little, overnights, but we would also chunk it in 4-hour chunks. So when we expect him to be asleep, although that didn't happen, he was like, I want to see everything. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But chunk your trips in the beginning and extend it each time, so that they are exposed to, hey, this is what we're going to expect. Make sure you pack their favorite snacks or comforting things. Like I said, he takes his squid everywhere. And so, he's into Mario. So he has a squid, the fire plant thing, and a star. Those are the three items he takes with him. It used to be a blanket. He's graduated to a doll. Right. And so, but they need that security with them. It's kind of like the Linus thing, their security blanket. Allow them that, and just know, yes, it might get dirty. Yes, they may take it in inappropriate places.
It will get dirty.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to clean the squid right now. He's not white anymore.
Right.
Maybe the first mistake was a white squid. Then
it is.
Keep going.
Yeah. That's the only one Mario has.
I was just gonna say he probably chose that. We went through the, it's funny. We went through the blanket thing. We went through a couple things where there's like, I have to take this, and then just like everything else, they just seem to gravitate towards this thing that they're locked in on and cannot live without. And then one day, with no warning, they're just done with it and on to something else.
Yes, and you need to allow that with them, because I know Dad was like, I don't see how you do it. I don't. Why is he taking it everywhere? I said, I'm telling you, if you allow him to do it, he eventually will let go one of these days. Instead of you trying to make him, and then he's going to forcefully want to take it and sneak it, and then it becomes harder for him to detach from it. So allow them that opportunity to do that on the different types of transportation. So again, if you have that ability with some of the different transportation systems in your city, I would highly recommend making it a family trip, if you will, or a family outing, and getting them exposed to that. So we have the train museum. I'm eventually having to take them on. We missed the story time one, and they are closed during the summer because it's so hot here. So hopefully when the fall season comes back, I can allow him to go on there, because it does get hot on those trains. Also, with the car rides, making it, short chunk trips, making it a family thing, getting everyone involved. It makes them feel more comfortable and more included, so that they don't feel like, oh, it's just for me type of thing. No, it's for the whole family. Keeping them all involved with that. Let's see, other mode. Oh, cruise. You did mention cruise. Carnival actually has, and now other cruise ships are coming aboard, where they are creating spaces for families with children that's autistic. And so you can actually allow them time in a space on their own, believe it or not, and you go enjoy yourself. And they have caregivers that are certified that will help curtail whatever experience they will do for that particular day on the cruise ships. And believe it or not, my son loves water. And so that is a bucket list item to do. So I'm intentionally going to plan maybe like a 3-dayer. So again, chunking it to somewhere small, and allowing him to get that exposure and see how he acts on the water, and myself. Because again, you might think you can handle the water, you really can't. And then there's certain parts and decks that you can sit on that makes the trip more pleasurable. So you don't want to sit on the wrong end of the ship if you've never been on one, especially if your first time. So I help you plan that as well. Yes, but cruise is basically the best bang for your buck. You don't have to get an extra hotel. You don't have to go
the inclusive stuff.
It has everything that's inclusive.
Yeah.
Foods, they will provide foods that are favorable for your child. So definitely want to look into that with different cruise ships. I know Carnival is a big major factor for that. I know other cruise ships are coming aboard, except for the ones that are only adults. They are definitely providing accommodations for families so that they too can provide that experience again and exposure for their child.
That's a
Amazing.
lot. I was
We're
just trying to
talking,
think of myself in that situation. Go ahead, Brian.
I was just say we're just for those who are listening, we're talking to Dian Rambo, if you joined us late, of destinedadventures.com. Obviously, if you've been listening, amazing resource of information. I, I'm feeling less anxious about taking a trip, and I'm not even thinking about taking my daughter with special needs. So amazing resource, destinedadventures.com. Dian Rambo. Go ahead, Sean. Sorry to interrupt you.
I was just going to say there because the idea of the cruise for me is just like, that's a little, overwhelming. I, do you know, Diane? I know when I was a kid in the Virgin Islands, when a ship would come into port, you could go as a person from the island, where the ship was coming to visit. You could actually board the ship for a day, like a tour or anything like that. Do you have any idea if ships allow that?
I know since COVID, they've gone to a lot of virtual ship inspections, if you will. That's what they call them. They call them ship inspections. However, I think they're slowly integrating it back. So once that rolls out to be more fluid, I will have more information regarding if they will allow, because I know they allow travel partners to come on and do ship inspections, but I don't know if they allow families just yet because they're slowly rolling that out. But everything's digital now, so a lot of people are trying to cut out expenses and keeping it
Mhm.
to the virtual world. But hopefully they'll bring it back a lot more sooner because they are rolling out new ships, especially Disney. Disney's
Mhm.
rolling out new ships this year and are providing wonderful experience, a once in a lifetime. It's my bucket list to go on a Disney cruise because I've heard nothing but pleasurable things, especially for the children on what they can experience on that ship in the all-inclusive environment and literally just be a kid all over again. And they don't have to worry about, someone stressing or harping over them on this is what you should do, should not do, and things like that.
I was wondering
We
about that since they have such a great reputation with the park. I was wondering if the cruises are autism friendly as well. Go ahead, Brian. Sorry.
we in Southern California we have the Queen Mary docked in Long Beach. It almost
Yes.
makes sense to go and do it, ship and go to have a dinner reservation at a
That's a
restaurant on
great
the boat,
idea.
right? And then go do that. And even if you're thinking about taking a cruise, maybe even a trip from Southern California to Catalina Island, which is a short travel, give you a little bit of experience. Is that one
Hmm.
of those things you recommend, Diane?
Yes, I would recommend doing something like that. And again, they consider that really a ship inspection, if you will, where they
Yeah.
allow you to board the boat, they tour the boats, they let you see the different cabins so that you can choose your cabin as well, especially if you birth them early, because you don't want to be in a confined place, and that's something that may trigger them. Being in
Uh,
such confined small room. Some of these ships do have bigger joining rooms, if you will, and you might be able to look up and get those types of rooms if you get your cabin early. A lot of people plan cruises usually a year in advance just because the cost for an entire family, they plan the payments out that way, but they also plan for, okay, what do I need for my child to be successful on this trip? What do I need as a parent to be successful for my child on this trip? And then so forth and so on. And then make sure that they can accommodate you on that particular cruise because they might be able to provide it as a cruise ship, but maybe not on that particular cruise. So that's why you want to plan ahead so that you
Got it.
can ask them, is there anything that they foresee that they cannot accommodate you with on that particular cruise?
Wow.
Interesting.
I was gonna share just a little bit of experience again in terms of how much worse we can make it. We recently had an experience where my mom, we went to see an exhibit at a local museum, and Elijah's been up to museums, especially for class field trips, where you go through at your own leisure. Didn't realize that the way this um, exhibit worked is that you were going in groups at a certain time. And for some reason, his anxiety was really high that day. And this might sound a little corny or, airy fairy, whatever have you. But I think that what we go in expecting, what we put into it emotionally and in terms of energy, can dictate what we get out of it. Because in the middle of it, we, walked into a situation where his anxiety was just high, and we happened to meet someone there that was an audiologist and was very understanding. And then the staff was more understanding than we expected too. I think we just tend to go to these dark places, and we learn something about the type of environment that we might not go to if we goes to a museum again. And again, goes back to what you were saying, which is this: if you don't try, you don't know. We came close to leaving, but it worked out.
Diane, let me ask this one last question before we ask you a final question. But do you recommend for families sort of like a sensory travel kit, or you recommend for all families to bring certain things with them when they're traveling to make to make it easier? Is there anything in particular, or is it just what we think, our favorite squid or blanket, if you will? In addition to that, is there anything else that you would recommend for families?
I know when I started out, I did bring, because again, my son wasn't eating solid foods, so I would bring things that I knew he would eat, because I didn't know at the time if the restaurants or even hotels, because sometimes room service is not always accommodating. So I would bring the stuff I knew he would eat, in order for him to have something to eat. And then I would just go out and purchase whatever I could that was a little more fulfilling, if you will. But now you have hotels and restaurants that are accommodating, and they have special menus for your loved one. So you definitely want to look into those certified places, because they do curtail the menu specifically for them. Um, but always bring something, again, that makes them feel safe and secure, something that's going to help them de-escalate at their own pace, if you will, because I know we're always in a rush. This is a rush, rush, rush society,
Right.
but we have to learn to be patient and go at their pace. So whatever is going to be making them feel safe and secure is what I would recommend bringing with you. So you don't have to bring the whole house, but a few items here and there. And just as long as you have that conversation or prepare them ahead of time, the more they are accepting of what to expect. And that's why planning is really the important phase of the travel part, because believe it or not, the more prepared you prepare them, the more smoothly the trip will be.
Love it. Love it. That's beautiful. Great stuff. Again, Dian Rambo, destinedadventures.com, certified autism travel specialist. Reach out to Diane on her website. She'll have resources for you, resource guides, and this kind of expertise, and you can contact her directly from the information on the site. Diane, it's always amazing to have you here. Before we let you go, we ask everybody our same question at the end of every episode. You got it one time before, but maybe things have changed. So, Sean, take it away, my friend.
This is the portion of the show where, with context, we state our ability to change the world, since we're all about growth and improvement here. Our ability to change the world is tied to our willingness, no matter how great or small, to change ourselves. So with that in mind, give us one example, just one, of a thought or a belief that you once felt strongly, but now no longer believe to be true.
The ability of the word, or the inability of the word can't. And I use my students as examples, because I've actually had a lot of students that were on IEPs. And it was amazing to learn that they have been taught the word can't so much that at the end of the school year, it was a transformation that they didn't foresee was going to happen on their ability to do. So I just basically incorporated what I've done with my son. I took their strengths and I used their strengths in the classroom to build up their weaknesses or their challenges. And so if they weren't able to write a paragraph, they were able to formulate it at the end of the school year. If someone was only reading 9 words a minute, they went up to 30 something words at the end of the school year. If they were insecure about not performing on a task, they saw that they were the ones that caused themselves to not be successful, and really loved that I pushed them and had set the standard for them to be able to perform at the level that I knew they were capable of before I even met them. And so that can't that we project on a lot of our kids, we have to be willing to change that narrative so that they can see that it is possible for them to do it.
From our friends at the telepathy tapes, that's a common refrain. Everybody talks about presumed incompetence that the rest of society seems to have, whereas you have yours presumed competence from get-go. You already presume that they can do it. Eliminate the word can't out of our vocabulary. It's beautiful.
Yes.
Love that. Love that. Any final, as we wrap up this episode, final comments for folks, looking to travel with their kids this summer? Any final words?
Yes, I say just get out there and do it. You never know what kind of kid you might come out on the other side. Like I said, you won't know until you actually try it, and you have to get it out of your mindset that what everyone else thinks or sees or might say about that's going on with you and your loved one should not matter. That has to be at the forefront every time you go and expose yourself and your child so that they can get what they need out of it.
Wow, I love that, because I'm always reminded of that. I realized recently I've come a long way, but I still care too much about other people's comfort versus our own, meaning my family and my son. I'm constantly reminded of that, and you have to continue to work on that. And we gotta start someplace. So love that.
Yes.
What a great episode this week, and so timely and so perfect. And Diane, we wish you tremendous success. Not only this, but to finish your master's degree and then jump into your PhD and all the things that you're doing to serve this community. We wish you, tons of luck and lots of love, because that's definitely what you're expressing for our families. Love that. As we wrap up this episode, we want to, thank you. We want to thank Billy Footwear, who creates adaptive footwear for people of all ages, sizes, abilities, and always a good, huge friend of the program. And we'll have a link to Billy Footwear in our show notes. If you click on the link, you'll get an additional discount off their price, even if it's on sale. Last, just a few, we host a bi-weekly Zoom support group for dads. So if you're interested in that, we'll have a link in there for the Dan for Dads of Special Needs family members, and great conversations always. Every time we get together, it's actually amazing. And Sean runs that program, and really is he's the impetus behind all of that. So as a dad, definitely, if you're a dad, join us, because safe place, the den. It's always the safest room in the house for dads to get together and talk about the things that are important to us. And I always say at the end of every episode, empathy and love, always more important, almost more important today than it was even yesterday. Have some empathy for the people that you see. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know the challenges or the things that they're facing. You don't know what they've just been through, or what they've come through, or what they're dealing with in the moment. So have some empathy. And finally, if you look at the world through lenses of love, the world is just a much more beautiful place. So with that, I'll throw it to Sean to wrap us up. And again, Diane, thank you so much for being here.
And thank you for having me. I appreciate you taking the time out and inviting me back, and really taking the tips that's out there. And please, please, please utilize your resources.
For sure. Love it.
Thank you so much, Diane. If you can stick around once we sign off as well, too. To everyone within the sound of my voice, thank you so much for tuning in. This platform, this show is just such a privilege and an honor. We just love what we do. We thank you for supporting it. Like, subscribe, share. If you know of anyone that you think may make a great guest, a topic that you want to see discussed email us at wearejusttwodads, that is TWO, wearejusttwodads@gmail.com. And remember that questions are more powerful than words. Everybody needs the same thing: to be seen, to be heard, to be loved, and to know that they matter. And you are not alone. You are one of us. If you're watching this, we love you. Thank you so much.
See y'all next week. Thanks again, Diane.
Thank you.